A lot of kids grow up wanting to be a rock star. Today's guest is the very rare kid who actually achieved it. The driving force behind Australian rock sensation UMI, he's earned a reputation not just for his explosive stage presence and razor-sharp wit, but as a lyrical and evocative storyteller. He's a wonderful contradiction, vulnerable yet fiercely confident, a self-described outsider who somehow captured the heart of the Australian music scene. 3 consecutive #1 albums, 10 ARIA awards from 31 nominations. His status as an Australian rock icon is secure. Yet he remains one of the most grounded, introspective souls in the industry. Today, we're very lucky to speak with the ever enigmatic and endlessly fascinating Mr. Tim Rogers. Nick, we had a rock star in the house.
And what a treat it was. How are those accolades you just listed?
I know.
What a career.
I know. In the 90s, he was big in the Australian music scene for sure.
Yeah. Oh, look, I still think of him as big. And
speaking of the 90s, I've got a question for you.
Oh.
The 90s band, Ben Folds 5, we were a big fan.
Yep.
In fact, I think we went to a few of their concerts together.
Yep.
Okay. What was the first lyric of the song Underground?
Underground, we can be happy.
Yeah, that's the song, yeah.
I was never cool in school.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm sure you don't remember me.
That's right. Yeah. And I think you'll agree, I was never cool in school.
I definitely agree.
Right.
Yep.
You were quite cool, though. I remember you being a pretty cool kid.
What is it to be cool in school? To be more insecure, you know? I think you were a dag.
Yeah.
There is no denying that. And I think I was painfully aware of the dagginess of our family and hid. And if that comes across as cool, let's go with that.
In defense of our family, we have a beautiful family. We have parents who loved us dearly, but they also loved musical theatre dearly.
Yeah,
something
musical
that
theatre,
I embraced. I took into my heart.
5-part harmony, holding hands, singing in public, a lot of things that just were a lot for a kid to deal with.
There were some who called us the Von Trapps.
Yeah.
Some meant that lovingly, and others probably meant it a little less lovingly.
I'm fine for us to laugh about this now, but honestly, as a kid, it wasn't always comfortable for me.
But here's the thing.
But you embraced it and you did it very well.
I did, actually. I did embrace it, and I like that about myself. But congratulations to you for emerging from the Van Cuylenberg household with some coolness intact.
Hiding with insecurities and going into esoteric music as a way of differentiating myself.
The relevance to our wonderful
brave
guest today is that even though he is a very famous rock star who is unquestionably cool, he wasn't when he was a kid.
Not at all.
We're going to hear that story today.
Dan, but had some struggles, insecurities.
Right. And a skin condition, among other things. But let's, we'll get onto that in just a moment. But I think, would you say Tim is the coolest guest we've had?
No.
Oh, controversial.
I don't think you can possibly say that anyone is cooler than Queen Kong. Tim is very cool. Again, we're ranking people. I don't like competition in coolness or music.
If Queen and Tim were together, I would probably not want to talk. I'd just listen. But that's true. Queen is a very cool guest. But no, look, Tim is an out-and-out rock star. I think he gets the #1 mantle. Yeah,
he's awesome. And he's all those things that you described in the start. Enigmatic, mysterious, poetic. I'm not sure he's grounded. You said grounded.
Yeah.
Is he grounded?
I think he is, and yet hard to pin down. And that's actually something I really enjoyed about this conversation. It sort of went this way and that way, lyrical, mysterious, enigmatic, and interesting. We haven't had anyone quite like him.
Yeah, interesting. The conversation goes a lot of different places. I was confused at times and trying to follow. So like all of us, it's a complicated history and an interesting story.
It definitely is. And there are some, heavier, more interesting themes that we'll dig into in the debrief as usual. But for now, let's spend some time with Tim. You're a Good Kid is recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and is supported by Engage One-on-One Psychology, helping people engage with life. This podcast discusses mental health-related themes that may be triggering for some listeners. If anything in the episode causes distress, please contact your health professional, or if urgent, call Lifeline on 13 11 14. My name is James Van Cuylenberg. I'm a clinical psychologist, and together with my brother Nick, we're going to hear stories from a diverse range of people about how their childhoods have shaped them. Our guests are invited to share a photo of themselves as kids, which you can see by following the link in the show notes. And at the end of each episode, you'll hear them read a letter to their child selves. If you could say anything to your child self, what would you say?
Welcome to You're a Good Kid. Tim was born in 1969 in the city of Kalgoorlie, a gold mining town set within the vast red desert landscape of Western Australia. He spent his first 7 years there before moving all over the country as he grew, living in Perth, Adelaide, Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, and now in country Victoria. Despite having moved all over Australia, Kalgoorlie has always remained a very special place for Tim.
Kalgoorlie looms very large in the way I represent myself, and it's a unique place to live, although most of my childhood was probably spent on the Nullarbor Highway.
The other location that looms large in Tim's upbringing is Adelaide, as he spent most of his formative teenage years there and recalls getting into quite a lot of trouble during this time.
It was all about experimentation, taking drugs and drinking, and I guess it was pretty young, 10 to 14, but it was all about that and discovering music. So music and taking drugs and drinking and even smoking dairies at 10 ran alongside discovering records.
Tim describes his late father as a big fella, a sportsman, an engineer who started off working on trams in Melbourne but then got into mining, which is why the family moved to WA.
A very quiet guy, never beat me up, wasn't around a hell of a lot, which didn't have a big impact because when he was home, we knew he was home. The strong, silent type, for sure.
Tim has always been incredibly close to his mum, although he does recall that she was quite serious when he was a kid, often worried, yet very thoughtful and inquisitive.
Yeah, a real example of someone who in her autumnal, if not winter years, always is up for the experience, for the party, for the adventure, asks a lot of questions.
So Tim's childhood saw a lot of movement, experimentation, music, and substance use from an early age. These experiences undeniably contributed to his creative persona and artistic future. However, they also left scars that Tim is still reckoning with. He was very generous today in opening up about his mental health struggles, which started to appear acutely during his teenage years in northwestern Sydney.
By the time I'd moved to Sydney, that I'd sort of had my roaring days or something, and got expelled, and it was time to get serious. And yet, that's when my troubles with my mental health started, and so that kind of upended everything. And of course, I was too young to ever think that I was going to have any level of peace in my life. I mean, that doesn't come until you're 56.
Well, Nick, today we are joined by Australian music royalty.
Indeed we are.
With Tim Rogers. Tim, thank you for coming to talk to us.
So far, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, that's it. Who knows what we're in for next?
Let us test the waters,
Exactly
gentlemen.
right. Exactly right.
We've dipped the toes. Let's get up to the torso.
Thank you for travelling from the country to come and talk to us today too. I appreciate
It's good. I get to expound upon my ever-building fear of the city and wondering my relationship to cities, because I felt so comfortable in them before, and then that turned to becoming a country person.
Yeah.
And just wondering what the changes, apart from age, and I didn't see myself living in the country at all, but I do, and
did you experience some country living as a kid, or was it mostly suburban and city living?
Very suburban.
Yeah.
And I'm quite grateful for that. Why? I think my ability to be completely happy being by myself and directionless has put me in good stead. And I think that's actually helped my psyche rather than that. And maybe it's informed my psyche, but whatever happened, I feel very grateful that I grew up in the suburbs.
Yeah. So are you chasing the quieter life at this point, or is that not it?
I think I always have. Yeah. Even with all the clanging and banging and screaming and screeching and more banging and more clanging, there was a peace in that, being on stage, even with a rock and roll group, where it felt quiet, which I know is a contradiction, but it was that quiet. And the difficult times always on tours when there are a lot of people around socially. And I feel a great disquiet in that, despite all appearances, and I'm always looking for an exit. And I don't think it's not very, very difficult, but I'm aware that I'm always looking for a way out. And so that piece that I have geographically now, I think I've always been in pursuit of that. Even when asked about habits and drinking and drug taking and things like that, it was the times I most enjoyed were by myself.
And now that you're surrounded by that so much more often, does it live up to the hype? Are you finding what you wanted in that silence?
Well, I didn't know it was possible, and I'd lived in St Kilda for 20 years, and I enjoyed it. Just had a tiny apartment there that I was renting, and the people I rented off were great. And I really thought that's where someone had discovered me 4 days after my death.
That's grim.
Well, it's kind of the reality of it. I didn't find it kind of grim because my worth that I always felt was in what I was creating. And so if you run yourself into the ground but leave good songs and good writing behind, to that point I thought, well, that's what you're supposed to do. And then being away from that kind of living in the past couple of years, I thought, oh, gee, there's a lot more going on, and you've got to be available for people, for family and for friends when they need you.
Yeah. Oh, it's all very interesting, but of course our focus is more on childhood, and I wonder, do you think much about your childhood and where you've come from? Does it factor in to your thinking much?
Hugely. I'm not ambivalent about my childhood because I know all my memories of growing up, whatever age, were opportunities just to be alone. In no tragic way at all, because I had good friends, but I was very eager to either blend in and then when the time is right, not find your tribe, but just not get beat up, you know. And then when I started getting skin conditions and had these pustules and warts all over me. And
oh, really? At what age?
About 7 or 8.
Oh, gosh, that would have been difficult.
Yeah, it was. And but that disappeared after about 3 years. Miraculously, when we moved from Perth to Adelaide, everything went. And that was kind of all over, and warts and boils on my hands and up my arms, and then it went to my face, and it just made me very self-conscious.
I bet it did. What impact did that have with the kids at school and self-confidence?
Well, I wasn't bullied so much as just avoided, because it looked like everything was transmittable. And so you become quite good at moving quickly so no one stares at you and notices these things about you that are different. And but it was transitional. It went, and I went to lots of different treatment centres, and it's still a mystery how it happened. I got bitten by a couple of redback spiders concurrently as a kid when I was 6, and there was some thought that it was a reaction to the redback venom.
You were quite a sporty kid, right?
Yeah,
Did it prevent your movement? And
yeah. It was got to the point where it was difficult to move freely, and so I just didn't play anything for years. And if, for example, if you're playing footy, and even at that age, if you're standing next to a dude and they notice that you've got these boils and warts and things on you, it's like, oh, what? So I just opted out of everything and gave it a rest for a while. So in answer to your question, I'll get it rounded to it finally that, I feel it very much in touch with that kid. Those years, I've got a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old at home, and thinking about the difference between them. I mean, it's huge in terms of what you go through developmentally in those 4 years and what's imprinted on our brains. And just thinking, you've had to deal with this complex skin condition and have this sense that kids don't want to be near you. What lasting impact do you think that had? I think it made me more empathetic. My empathy would go straight to those who were being bullied, and I couldn't get involved in bullying. I think I think I it's quite possible I got
innate compassion.
Well, it's also very possible that I got drawn into not saying anything for fear of it turning on you. That's absolutely possible. And I think about that quite a lot because just kids of friends, whether they're in the town where I live or just my bandmates' kids or just trying to watch out for that, the cruelty of children.
Yeah, for sure. It's rough. It is really rough.
I think it's fascinating though, thinking about the empathy that's developing for you. That's obviously served you really well as an artist. But I'm just curious about the next stage as you enter your early teens and you say that you're a little bit on the outer for fear of being bullied. How did you fit in socially in the group dynamic after this stage?
Because I could play team sports, things happened. I was a decent cricketer, decent enough footballer. And so that's how I ingratiate myself into some sort of social group. And
you've shared some photos, Tim, I might seem relevant to this. So you've got one here. This is you in the ruck, is it?
No, I'm full forward.
Where are you?
I'm reaching for the mark. I'm on the ponce, going for the mark.
Here.
That one, in the green and yellow.
Yes, I see. Yeah.
Classic.
I
was more of a redhead
photo,
as a kid. Yeah, that was probably in Adelaide for Westbourne Park Primary.
Mm-hmm. So how old would you be there, do you think?
I think 10.
Yeah. So towards the end of those difficulties you were mentioning with the skin condition.
Yeah. I'd moved to Adelaide by then with my family. And that was taken in Ferntree Gully in Victoria. I was living with my grandmother. So I guess I would have been maybe 6 then. And the shirt is one that my dad brought back from, I think, the Philippines. He was working on some engineering projects over there and I was pretty proud. But I remember even then I had a cold sore. My skin had cleared up for a brief... Oh, no, this was just before everything started getting really bad. But I used to get cold sores all the time. And so that's actually been not Photoshop, but the photo processing plant, even back then, that's 1975, 76, touched it up so my cold sore isn't quite as bulbous as it.
Early Photoshop.
Yeah. Yeah, so at my parents' behest, because it was the preeminent thing, I used to get cold sores. It was like tennis balls and
all of that sounds very unfair for a kid. Like, you don't get to pick this stuff, and school's hard enough already without skin conditions and cold sores. And
yeah, it makes me think a lot about when even kids back then being bullied for their culture, for their cultural background. And because mine was just skin deep, something like the conditions that I had were uncomfortable and they sucked, and because I really would have loved to have been, even at that age, I was fascinated by girls. They just always seemed smarter, and yet I felt, well, nobody's going to talk to me, let alone an intelligent young girl with me looking this way. And it gives you a bit of patience, I think. I do wonder if you get a pretty easy ride at school, if you're free of anything to be bullied about, how that and does it set you up for stuff later in life? I think unfortunately a bit of bullying and some difficult circumstances coming up as a kid can give you some resilience, but I don't want any young person to have to go through any hardship. I can't stand seeing any child or any human in discomfort or pain.
Did you learn those values at home? Did mum and dad demonstrate those values of compassion and care?
Well, they did. They were. I noticed it in my father more because being a big guy and in the work he did, he was never a braggart, and was good with drink and everything. He'd never got violent with us, but he was surrounded by that culture, and he loved pub culture and footy culture and cricket culture and all that. But yeah, he seemed kind of he'd never pile on to anyone, and I definitely got something from him. And Mum, being an extremely compassionate person and also very quick to, if it was always skiting. If you got ahead of yourself and talking big about yourself, she'd be the first one to to knock you down a peg, and which again getting sort of clipped around the ear, whether metaphorically or mostly metaphorically, is never enjoyable at the time. And I used to be horrified of disappointing my mum. When I first got busted for it was pot or amphetamines or something at 13, 14, and I was just most terrified of telling my parents about it. The police and school authorities, that was kind of easy, but I just...
And was it more mum that you were worried about the reaction than dad?
No, I thought, finally I'm going to see a violent part of my dad, and he's going to beat the living crap, but it never came out. He was just... His reproachment took the form of walking in and he'd go, I think it's time for a haircut, boy. Because he used to cut my hair, all of our hair.
That's the way
actually.
to fix you up, get you straight.
Yeah, and well, it's quite something. This big guy hulking over you with scissors in his hand. Oh shit! But he'd just very quietly talk about it, and I think he knew the power of silence.
Okay.
Very well,
and yet it didn't change the behaviour, because you described for us before pretty early start with that kind of stuff from even as young as 10, and it continued. So they didn't dissuade you.
It did. I got very good at hiding things. But I was fascinated by drug culture and drinking culture, and particularly with drug stuff, because it ran parallel to music for me.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, the first time I fell in love with the Stones, for example, it was we'd take drugs and smoke. It was just smoking pot, and listen to Stones records. That's what we did. And then someone would whack on a Sex Pistols record or a Clash record, and it was just all this kind of bohemian otherworld. And very lucky to have friends with great record collections and access to a lot of drugs. And I pretty much found out that I wasn't good at it. That was another thing. It took a while, but I wasn't ever, and still aren't, a great drugs taker. And
what does that mean, to not be good at it?
I'm being a little silly with my language there. Never really loved it.
Interesting.
Did later on in life when doing certain drugs was just a way to keep the night going or get through another day on the road or whatever. But I never fell in love with the way that, even pot, the way a lot of my mates did at a very young age, and speed.
But as a teenager, was it more about that enjoyment of music and kind of altering your state rather than just fitting in socially? It was a bit more of a creative exploration. Oh, it was both?
Yeah. I wanted approval just like any kid of it, but it was the people I wanted approval for were the naughty kids, and so I'd go with them. But when it would go too far, I'd be looking for the exit, because if it got into breaking into places and stealing. I was never really very good at that. My brother was an excellent shoplifter, and
quite the compliment.
I've never been so proud of him. I remember when we were 12 or 13, and he had this little ring going at the local. Sorry, Jamie, but with his mates at the local Kmart or Woolworths, and it was I used to follow him around and see him do this. It was all planned, and he was so laissez-faire about it. He was brilliant. He'd go, He let me tag along with him a couple of times as they, would nick chocolates or tapes and T-shirts and footy shorts and anything. And I was just in such admiration. Wow, he's a Dickensian criminal warlord, and
and what held you back?
I think I've always been very see-through. I don't have a great poker face. It's probably why I've never been a good actor. And he does excellent poker face, and he was bigger as well and sturdy. And I'm very much a people pleaser. And that said, I am quite sure in my own bubble of worry as a kid that people might have been hurt by my inaction or or action. And while I look back and think, well, no, I was pretty kind. There's every possibility that I wasn't by not speaking up about stuff or being dismissive or being aggressive in situations. And so definitely not a clean slate. And
I'm curious about anxiety and your relationship to it from a young
curious
age,
about it.
because I know it's been something you've had to deal with throughout your life and managed, sometimes okay and sometimes not so okay in terms of your mental health journey. When do you first remember identifying and like, yeah, I'm experiencing anxiety like as a kid? Do you remember the feeling of it? And
yeah, I remember the first episode. I didn't know what to call it. I didn't know what to call it until probably in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 16 and I was on a school oval in northwestern Sydney, and a feeling came over me that I knew wasn't nervousness, which I think is really important to differentiate nervousness and worry with anxiety.
And panic.
And panic, yeah. So this feeling came over me, and I thought I'd heard about flashbacks before, and I thought, right, because I've experimented with acid and amphetamines, and this is the payback. And then, but that didn't sit because I couldn't get back inside my own body. I was panicking such low, and it was a serene situation. I hadn't taken anything, and I was in the company of maybe one or two other people, and I couldn't get back inside my body. So it's very the language around it's very druggy, but
but it felt like you were out of your body.
Yeah, it's the only way I can explain it. It's you just feel removed from my carapace of skin, and I'm floating around somewhere out there, and everything is precarious and difficult, and I'm not understanding my own thoughts, and very uncomfortable.
Scary.
Really scary.
And how long did those episodes last?
Well, boy, hours and hours and hours, and I didn't deal with it because I didn't know really what to do and how to explain it.
And how often do they occur?
It got to a point of once a day, at least once a day, and so that was maybe when I was 17 or 18.
This is when you're trying to finish school.
Yeah.
Well, did people know? Did they know what your inner world was like?
I didn't know how to explain it.
So there was a performative element?
Yeah, completely.
What do you suspect is the genesis of the anxiety? Do you think there are experiences you went through, or is this something you were born with?
I'll never know.
What would be your best guess?
Well, I was quite nervy as a kid, so maybe I was kind of in the arena of that being a potential, and then something clicked it over, and it could have been, just pushing it a little too far with smoking and drinking and things. But
well, there's certainly links there, isn't there?
Yeah,
James?
there's strong literature around substance use for adolescents and the triggers it can have, particularly around paranoia and anxiety
for kids, and particularly with the strength of pot these days, and it, entirely possible. They just clicked. It's opened a door which I'll never get back. No, here, with acquaintances and friends and who have had bad experiences with hallucinogenics, and they feel that that's a door open that'll never be closed again, and they'd dearly love for it to be closed again. And I didn't think I gained any of the knowledge from those experiences, and I just gained the fear. And when I felt like I was through the other side, which I'm not, because it still happens these days, and I'll still get attacks, and they suck and they're awful, and but you push through them, and I just do everything I can these days not to get myself in that arena, we'll call it, to let yourself. It's a possibility. And I know it's a possibility if I'm 3 days snort and blow and drinking whiskey and beer and just going on, never sleeping. It's going to happen. So you know that, and you've got to take full responsibility for that. And when they come on, but I haven't done any of that. Like particularly this year, I've been a lot healthier than I've ever been, and yet I've had maybe 1 or 2 in the past year, which is really good average, as opposed to 300 a decade ago or 365 40 years ago. So having less than half a dozen a year is, just merci mon Dieu.
But I'm interested in like your identity as an emerging, lover of rock music, and that's happening in that adolescent phase alongside substance use. As you alluded to earlier in St Kilda, it's like, well, if they find me in the gutter, that's part of the deal. It's it's that association. Is that hard to break? Like the sense of, well, this is just part of it. It's part of who I am.
When my daughter was born, this may be a rather roundabout way of trying to answer your question. I remember when I found out my daughter's mum was pregnant, that I started shaving again, got a proper haircut and stopped drinking. We were living in Madrid at the time and just thought, right, that's it. And then thought, going to really get myself together, and I can't be this anxious, freewheeling, silly living person, and you've got the biggest responsibility you'll ever have. And then when our little family unit broke apart, and then when my daughter moved to the States with her mum and her stepdad, this beautiful family, they're wonderful, I became so bitter and angry and sad about that I there was a part of me that gave up. And so I just sort of dropped my bundle, and for probably a good decade just didn't live with much modicum of responsibility. I always wanted to be available for my friends, or particularly with my daughter, whenever she needed help. But potentially I wasn't, because I just kind of gave up in a way. And yet,
leading to what?
Leading to just being very cavalier with how I was living, and that, well, this is my life, and I've done as much as I can, and made some good records,
Well, I find that curious that you call it giving up, and yet you were so prolific with your work. So there's part of you that's still got a drive and a thirst.
It was to want to make sure that she was okay. That I framed it as that, and then there'd be these times of running along with that. Is I didn't want to be the bitter guy at the end of the bar. If I was out and drinking for 40 hours, I just didn't want to be dismissive of anything. I wanted to be available, open, quiet, and my bandmates still wanted to keep playing. They tolerated me, and so every day there'd be this opportunity to get involved in something beautiful, which was writing songs, and that was this little, this the brilliant, beautiful life of my daughter, and writing songs kind of that were the things. So there was, when I say give up, I just I can look back at it now and thinking I really kind of dropped my bundle and wonder how things could have been different if I wasn't so careless. And
a bit self-destructive.
Self-destructive, I'm sorry, that's the word I was looking for, because I cared very much about the people I was with intimately, but destructive, and would just think nothing about being completely reckless with your health.
And that was the case from when you were a teenager? Or was it different back then? Did it have a more romantic flavour back then?
It had a romantic flavour back then, and thinking that this is the way that you enter the palace of creative brilliance, or just live a different life.
Yeah, and sort of rebellious spirit.
It sounds like the romance carried over, though.
Yeah, well, it still is. I'm fascinated by unhealthy ways of living to create art.
And what is that? Is that it's the rawness or the authenticity of that? What's the appeal?
I don't think it's authentic. I just think that some beautiful art has been created by being on the edge of derangement.
Yeah.
But the fetishistic way that we take that, I find completely abhorrent. That we revel in the some of my heroes, whether it's Sid Barrett or Nicky Sudden or Nico or these people that we seem to love all the horrible stories about them. But when you get tiny glimpses into just how horrible and how difficult you make your life be, why would you flirt with, this little edict I have at the moment is, that sorrow will find you, and difficulty and tragedy, they'll find you. People die. People get very ill. Why would you encourage any kind of difficulty in your life?
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
If they happen to me, I don't mind. It's when they happen around with people I love. That's, I want to be ready to be anywhere for them, whether it's, fly the helicopter into the mountains to save them or just be there when they're in trouble. And
meaning you need to be more clear-headed in those moments to be available?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And, obviously as a self-confessed sort of introverted, anxious person, there's the avoidant part of it too, right? It numbs that noise. Do you find comfort in that side of it? Like just that, is it more in pursuit of the kind of, as you said, the kind of creative side, or is it more the comfort and avoidance?
No, comfort and, it's a numb it. I remember the first time I took really great coke was on a tour bus in the States. We were touring with a massive band and their road crew just dished off a whole stash of really strong cocaine and great. And I remember I was in the back of the bus and had my pen and paper ready and went railed up and a couple of whiskeys and thought, right, now I'm going to write. Now I'm ready to write. Finally, I've gotten the keys to Valhalla and
nothing.
Of course, nothing happened. Right, back to the party, and months and months of that. And I thought, right, this, I even read back because I've got just hundreds of little books and scraps of paper with beer coasters and what I think at the time are surely the best lyrics I've come up with. And nothing ever gets finished, a couple of verses and and I still think maybe one day I'll go back and finish those things. And no, terrible.
Yeah.
And so it's not the.
So when do you create your best work then? If it's not that,
when walking.
Definitely
when walking. It's but back at the start, as a kid, I didn't even think being a songwriter was possible. I didn't write my first song until I was maybe 18. And I've never edited myself when writing until the last couple of years. And so that's why I don't think much about the lyrics to any of the first couple of 100 songs I wrote, because it's just emoting and there's no craft to it. And maybe that's what people like about what I've done 20, 30 years ago and dismiss what I do now, because it was just kind of spewing stuff out and there wasn't a hell of a lot of thought to it. It was because I didn't think anyone was listening anyway. And now I take a lot of time on songs, but mostly when walking.
And is it trying to access now something that's not as altered or performative?
Well, I get a lot of peace working with words and even more than music and sort of crafting something that's rhythmically and looking at the syntax. Definitely not working to a format, but just loving the way that words can hold your attention, and then you're adrift for a stanza, and then suddenly you're back, and just find a lot of peace. And it's maybe there's a dopamine hit with that. I was listening to a talk, the author Ocean Vuong, a brilliant author, was talking about his addictions that and how he thinks he's replaced that with the dopamine hit of creating good literature. And I recognise something in that. There's you get that same little thrill and, now I can go and be a good person. And so if I work on songs or some other piece I'm working on, more prose writing or fiction in the morning, it's there, I'm ready for anything. You know, it happened this morning. It's probably the only reason I'm still here in the city is because I was working on some songs this morning and I thought,
Yeah. So I've been listening to your memoir and
Right.
I feel like I can hear that occurring. I can hear the dopamine hit when you're describing a situation and your storytelling just takes it away. And it might be seemingly mundane, but the way you describe it is so artful. It's almost like listening to a song.
Oh, good. That was a strange experience. Writing that, I didn't want to write anything particularly autobiographical. I was born here. This is the way it happened, and there was none of that. It was stories and quite impressionistic. And when I went back to Kalgoorlie years and years ago with my father, I racked up a number of bills of the drinking establishments at Kalgoorlie, and also just travelling out there with Dad. And it was probably the last time we were going to get to go out there together. And I got approached by a writing agent, and my first thought was, if I find a way of justifying this trip out to Kalgoorlie with my dad by writing about it, then I can wipe those debts.
Okay.
I didn't really feel I had a point to prove, you know. It was, and if Melanie, my agent, and my very dear friend wasn't cracking the whip at my back, I wouldn't have finished it. And I just would have written them and put them in the desk and left them there for a while.
Well, you know, as you mentioned, Dad, maybe we could hear a bit more about your relationship with Mum and Dad and how it evolved over the years from what it was like when you were a kid and what happened to it as your profile took off in Australia. How did that affect that relationship?
I didn't know how to explain it to them. My dad was the band. He loved meeting up with me in England when we'd be touring over there, and he could be with with Andy and Russ and then Davey and go out drinking together and in English pubs. And Mum similarly I don't know that she really enjoys our music much, but likes likes to hear some good stories. But because the life of the band has been pretty perilously close to bad health of myself, she's a bit more cautious, you know. So if I do anything to do with theatre or literature or TV or film acting, she thinks, all right, he's safe now. There's still this danger element.
Yeah. To the rock and roll lifestyle.
Yeah, which there should be, because it's great. I think your only responsibility as a performer, and particularly in rock and roll, is just to be interesting. You know, whether your favourite rock and roller is JJ Cale or Jojo Cocker or David Bowie or Nico Case or Mary Margaret O'Hara or Patti Smith. There's nothing cliched about those people. They're just really, really interesting. I mean, I think Patti's probably the shining example of, to all of us, what a rock star should be. She puts her smarts out there. She puts her passion out there and gives and gives and gives. And she's fascinating. I've been at dinner with Patti Smith. I was trying to concentrate on the sushi and whiskey there, and I'm just, how does Patti do everything? You know, and what she did was just absolutely show complete indifference to me and my friends at the table. She should. She was conserving her energy.
Well, tell me about your own identity as you are now in that world. When you were saying you just have to be interesting, you know.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you achieved that, and are you proud of that?
Oh, also to be interested, because there are a lot of people who aren't. Never ask the questions, and I've definitely achieved keeping my interest levels extremely high. Dichotomous as I'm here talking about myself, but to be more interested in the lives of others than your own is important.
Which is the title of one of your albums, of course.
Yeah, and probably the best, I think, in my not so humble opinion. But I believe a performer has to isolate themselves from the perennial comment wheel, and also needing validation by people who aren't close to you. Opinions are thrown around so easily. Of course, I'm talking about social media stuff and comments. And a good comment, a good review lasts 14 and a half minutes. Right. I know. I've had a couple. 14 and a half minutes. A bad review, a bad comment will last
years.
If not, if not decades. Right. I still remember, and I've played bad shows, made bad faux pas on record, and criticism has absolutely stuck with me, and it will make you angry and sad. Yep. Speaking with friends, really successful friends of mine who recently I've gotten back into contact with, and other singers, and that no amount of success or acclaim shields you from how that can really hurt you.
So do you, when you're saying it really hurts, do you think it gets through and confirms some of your worst fears about what you think of yourself?
Yeah. Because I'm not a good singer. You know, I emote and I definitely try and put it out there, but I just don't have physically. I'm just not a good singer, and I'm absolutely fine with that. No, I'm not fine with that. I'm actually very dissatisfied with it, and I'm in the company of great singers all the time, and I'm very not envious. I'd love to have the capability to sing that way. You know, when someone criticises me for singing, I just kind of tend to agree with them. But I just to hear that.
Yeah, it's sad to hear that.
Yeah, because you're so celebrated and so acclaimed and
never as a singer
so much. Right. I don't know that's true.
Your authenticity shines through your voice. I think that the people that love your voice.
Well, it's the only one I've got. So I do work on it.
Yeah, but you embody it with self-assuredness and
chutzpah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's helped that I've been friends with really, really great singers, and they remain friends with me, and we can talk about work as performers, and if they look down on me, they've got a great way of disguising it, but I'm sort of allowed to be at the table with these singers that I just adore, and even though this is the voice I got, I don't treat it with much, but I do really care about playing good shows, and I know now that getting on the tins first thing in the morning is not going to mean it's not going to make your voice any better. I used to think it would make it more authentic if I was just plastered all the time. And so now that I'm not, I try my hardest, and at the end of the performance, at least I can look to my bandmates or look at myself in the mirror if I'm playing by myself and think, well, at least you tried. Cutting yourself off from opinions just thrown at you. Again, getting someone telling you that you're an overrated twat isn't going to help the next show, and so just
a lot of the time our insecurities, of course, are rooted from childhood. They come from times when we felt most vulnerable. I'm thinking of you as that 7-8-year-old struggling to connect socially, on the periphery. Does that version of you ever pop up these days? Do you ever feel alone, even when you're, performing?
It makes me feel okay about being alone, actually. I used those experiences back then, that you were okay in your own company back then. You had your imagination. You're very daydreaming.
You speak to a resilience, like that kid was okay despite the fact that things were tough.
I'd like to see it as resilience, when escapism. I've seen it as escapism rather than any kind of resilience, but maybe there's a resilience in there.
So are you nostalgic for that period of childhood?
No, absolutely not. I'd like to go back and change some things, but if I changed them, I wouldn't be where I am now, which I don't want to drag it away because I think it's really helped me. I don't want another person to have to go through that, because the only thing that really made me see light at the end of the tunnel as far as all the anxiety stuff was one day my dad, who was back at home was sort of post mum and dad's breakup, but he was back at home and I was just in tears on the floor, and Dad walked in and I sort of got myself together, and he was like, "What's up?" And I said, "Oh, look, I can't really explain." And he sat down for a second and said, "Well, try me." And I said, "Oh, look, I feel like I'm out of my head and I feel like there's waves falling on me." And he said, "Have you taken anything or smoked anything today?" I said, No, I get these feelings, Dad. It's been happening for a year." And he said, "Oh, yeah, I get that feeling sometimes as well." And then he kind of walked off enigmatically as he would.
Wow.
And I just felt this great weight come up. My dad, who's this solid as hell dude, and he's had those feelings as well. Maybe there's a chance, I can.
That's really interesting. Did it matter to you to impress them? Like, did you find as you were gaining success, you wanted them to be proud of you?
I'd actually say no. If I was a lousy person in a civic or social atmosphere, and they let me know. And that happened a couple of times as a kid. Dad or Mum would say, "Hey, you're a bit of a dickhead," and that would really hurt. But with music stuff, I had no determination, no plan. I only got in the band. I got asked to join the band because I had to drop out of law school because I was so sick, and moved back into my mum's house, and I was just at a complete loose end. I was so medicated that.
Well, do you mind talking about this? Because of course you were diagnosed with schizophrenia at that time. Is that correct? Yeah, which is a significant diagnosis.
It wasn't. I want to be responsible for this stuff, but a doctor said you're having schizophrenic episodes.
Mm-hmm. Not necessarily diagnosed with schizophrenia.
That's right.
Okay.
Schizophrenic episodes, and that's all I heard, and then I just shut down. I went, "Oh, because it was the scariest thing."
Yeah,
it's a real unknown. Even the word still scares me, and I think I just dropped my bundle. I did anything to just be not anxious or paranoid or have those episodes, and so I thought, right, I'll just stay on the medication, stay at home. And the only thing that got me out at the house was my brother and my best friend Nick going to band practice.
Yeah.
And then when it became shows, that more and more shows and more travelling, and it got me out of the bedroom. I didn't know, so a music career just wasn't part of it.
But I think I've heard you say that once you were on stage, you had worried that, am I going to have an anxious episode? But it doesn't happen. Like when you're on stage, you're in the zone.
I had one the other week, and it was a show by myself, so very quiet, people listening, great little crowd, and I hadn't performed without having a lot of drinks in a while, and I found myself going into this, and then bang, it hit me, and I was, you have got to be kidding. This hasn't happened in a long, long while. And I haven't got the band around to help me. And so it happened, I got through it. I didn't play a great show, but I tried. And
you had rising panic in the middle of a show.
Yeah, at the start.
That must be terrible.
Well, it was, and then I felt very grateful that I had songs to lose myself into, but I really had to concentrate on trying to find songs with a narrative where I could fall into the narrative. And I think when people are having attacks, it's why one out that I have these days is why I always carry a book with me, particularly fiction, because I find if I feel something happening, I go, right, time out. I'm going to spend half an hour reading. At the end of that half hour, why is my life so brilliant? And I can be reading something absolutely tragic, but I'm suddenly out of here and I'm there. I'm in.
You described something pretty interesting today. I'm trying to get my head around it, but it's like you've got this performativity, this larger-than-life character that you play in the band that helps stave off the anxiety because you're going into this larger-than-life world. But you were also talking about your best work is when you're not on the gear, when you're soberly yourself. or most authentically yourself. Is there a tension there between the character, the performativity, and your honest?
It's not a character. It's all me, but it's
the altered version of you then, the one that requires the substance and the presentation.
Well, I like to think that my performances these days have a substance to them, and that is a mix of 12-year-old me, just dreaming of being in a rock band and never lose sight of that 12-year-old listening to, the Sex Pistols record, Never Mind the Bollocks, the first time, and just, or listening to Exile on Main Street for the first time, or hearing the Replacements for the first time. My God. And this ephemeral but also eternal part of my life, which has been dancing and isn't being on stage and part of the guitar or just singing with the microphone, look at me, is dancing. And I can be free of everything and, look at what I can do and all that fancy stuff. But it's really just an amplification of the 12-year-old me, and
the dreamer.
What I've learned, daydreaming. It's really daydreaming. And then what I've learned from time, which it doesn't really amount to much apart from just, again, be respectful of the crew. And, probably a good idea not to get too deep into the whiskey before a show. You're going to misread stuff and be the 12-year-old.
It's interesting to me that you say 12-year-old because you said that 13 was when the substance use kind of kicked in. Is that right?
Yeah, well, but no more than any kid. It really wasn't a big deal.
But do you see 12 as the kind of pure years before that all started to happen?
No, 12 was my first exposure to tape swapping and collecting and really getting into record nerd stuff, and still loving pop music on the radio. But I think it was 11 or 12 where I met a couple of guys in Adelaide who were my age, but they had money from where we. I'm not exactly sure, but we go out and buy records and listen to records and smoke darts and just go, oh my God, this AC/DC record, Back in Black was the big one, of course, and then but they said listen to Power Age, and
the magic was there in the music.
Yeah. Magic was there, and then also at, between 12 and 13, I started playing guitar, so that's why I kept going back to that time.
Yeah, gee, that's quite late in a sense, isn't it, to just pick it up around 12 or 13? It wasn't part of your younger years' music.
No, my mum and dad both had really beautiful singing voices, and there were guitars around the house that were never in tune because I think they both used to play, but to no great end. But yeah, now when I see my daughter playing and all her mates have been playing for so long and they're all just dynamite musicians and I was a really late developer as far as that's concerned. At the time, though, it was 12 or 13 was about the age when people either became, they got into music and naughty living or were into sports and then I missed out recognising that there's this other way of studious, young, serious kids, and I wish I spent more time with them, when I discovered a little tribe of very, very smart, predominantly women, 16, 17, who knew poetry and knew literature, and I think, oh man, I wish I spent more time with them.
Yeah.
A very dear friend of mine, recently we caught up for the first time in a very long while, and I regarded her as having the intellect of a giant at that, and I brought it up again the other week, and she said, God, you got it so wrong, man. We were as pretentious / aspirational as you were, Tim. We were, we'd walk around with copies of Catcher in the Rye in our back pocket, but did we read it? We all pretended that we read Rimbaud and Baudelaire. Did any of us really read that stuff?
Still sets you on a path, though.
Oh yeah, as being pretentious / aspirational, which is great because when I get accused of being pretentious quite a lot, and I'll take that on, because what other people see as being pretentious, I see as being aspirational. You know, but it's not quite faking it till you make it, but lambasting someone or lauding them in French on the cricket field, I find highly amusing. And other people go, what the Jacques Levy are you on about? And I say, well, why not? You know, I mean, it brings a smile to my face, and then I'm a better I can be of more worth to you if I'm happy than if I'm so.
I'm glad to hear your creativity goes through to sledging as well. That's good.
Well, having said that, I don't sledge. I'm not a sledger.
Only in French.
No, it's more. What was my one yesterday at training? When a ball would go through me, I'd go, oh, dear, which is saying, oh, gosh, dear, oh, rather than saying, merde, or, you know, full.
I see.
Other, dear, oh, gosh, I missed it.
So I'm curious about, like, this chapter of your life you're in now sounds quite important. Like, there's something happening. You know, you've moved to the country and you're focusing on your health a little bit more.
A little bit.
Your approach to performing live has shifted. What's going on here? And
you're editing your lyrics.
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, it's about time. Not quite sure. It's probably an aging thing. 56 now. You know, I'm well into the autumn period of life. I've just felt more available, and some old friends have gotten back in contact with me. I think that's it. Thank you. See, I'm learning things as I go. But friends I haven't spoken to in decades have gotten back in touch, and it's allayed some of the fears I had about behaviour as a kid, and to get back in touch with people at this sort of bookend. Hopefully I've got a little time, but
allayed fears in what way? What do you mean by that?
I think allayed fears are just the mystery around things that happened as a kid. Nascent romantic adventures, for example, or
did you think you burned some bridges along the way, or?
Yeah, and had the bridge taken out from under me a number of times as well, and and even when it was non-romantically, just as friends, and friends that I hadn't spoken to in decades, back in contact. And I wondered why it was happening this year. Was it because there's people who are my age and school friends of mine, they're feeling mortality or peace? I think it's a number of that people who had families, their kids have grown up and they're going to university or travelling internationally, or they're out of the home. You kind of wake up and there's okay, we've got a bit of time to catch up now, and
time for others.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of anxiety in the years as well, and I think of anxiety as being quite self-focused. It pulls you into yourself. So it's interesting to hear that the healthier version of you is one that can be more outward focused, and that kind of goes hand in hand with managing anxiety better.
It's thank you for telling me. When you know it's not necessarily, even when you're being responsible about your noggin health and you're doing everything you can to get yourself out of that arena, exist out of that. Don't prod the bear, don't poke the tiger, whatever the expression is, and get yourself into that position where it could come back, and it does come back, but it's completely manageable. I think I'm so grateful for that, because at the time when they happen, I'm resentful and I think, oh, come on, man, I haven't done anything to bring this on, and it's just my wiring is a little askew, and to get through it just through activities at hand that can move you back into your skin and back into your head and back into your brain and find peace. And is fortifying.
And I know you said a motivation is your daughter, but are you also trying to be kinder to yourself at this point of your life?
Well, only in just that it makes me more available for friends and also strangers. Yesterday I was buying a sun hat because I'm very pale and skin cancer surgeries recently, and thought, right, it's time to finally get the Greg Chappell sun hat. And I was just standing there waiting at a counter, lost in my thoughts, and this young fella, he kind of Jacob Elordi, kind of that good looking,
right,
tall, lanky, and he just walked in front of me and went to the counter and excuse me, and he turned around and went, "What, man, did I push in front of you?" And I said, yeah. And he went, Pfft. I said, okay. And the lady at the counter said, "Sir, I'm so sorry about that." And I said, "I'm actually more concerned with the way he dealt with it, because I didn't want to, but then I had to think, why did I even mention it? Because it's I had the minute to wait there, but it got to me that he didn't even apologise for something so tiny. And yet, if that would have been me in his situation, I would have been, "Oh my Lord, look, let me go and get you a donut. I'm so sorry." It just impulse, "I'm so sorry. If you're probably far busier and you've probably got, kids to attend to." And the lady was very apologetic, and I moved on, and I thought, okay, this is getting to me, but actually, is it? And then it became more amusing as the day went on, because I thought, I'm finally invisible. 6'3", Dickensian looking villain. I'm invisible. So welcome to the rest of the population, This is the way most people live their lives, as invisible. And you've just joined the invisible. It's absolutely fine. And his response wasn't what I thought was appropriate, but nah, c'est la vie, It's
bit more carefree.
Yeah, I like that.
Faire rien, I would say. It means nothing, but yet it kind of did. And then when I went to the supermarket after that, and I thought I could feel my kind of little steams kind of allay, and lo and behold, he was in the same row as I was, kind of dolefully going through and picking up some energy bar or an energy drink.
Enthusiasm, right? At this point,
it became
recurring character,
such a Larry David point. This loping Jacob Elordi looking kid in front of me, and I really just wanted to get a trolley and sort of run into him,
or just cut in front of him,
and he, whatever, man, and I allowed the thought to come in, I don't know what is going on in his life. He's probably had a horrible experience. And just because he's good looking and looks like he's never had a pimple in his life doesn't mean that he's free of worry. And
Good.
So Rogers.
It's a humanising thought.
Yes, be human in those circumstances.
Tim,
but if I see him again and if he cuts in front of me.
Yeah, no, he's done.
Dude's dead.
Yep, totally. Deserves it. I'm aware you've been very generous with your time, but Nick doesn't know this yet, but we had a chat before about maybe doing a variation on a child letter today with some music. Yeah, now normally I write things pen to paper or pencil to paper, but I did this on a telephone, which I'm a little, if not embarrassed, a bit self-conscious about. We'll take a break and we'll do that in a minute. I just wanted to clue Nick in that we might have an opportunity to hear a bit of music from Tim, and he's going to improvise it. So we'll,
you serious?
It's going to be really special.
Okay, I only had 3 guitars in the corner just in case.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll do that in just a minute. But before we get there, I just want to ask you, and I ask this of everyone who comes in. Yeah. Being in this space of thinking back to your child self, how do you feel about him? I like him. He wasn't particularly great at times, dismissive of other kids, maybe lost in my own thoughts, There were times when I wasn't kind to classmates. I regret not being more mindful of that, to be a better friend. But to the kid I was, he's generally all right, kind of inquisitive and interested. And the dreamer. Oh, such a bloody daydreamer. My parents had a dinner party when we were really young. I think it was Perth.
and a woman was at the dinner party, and she seemed very elegant to me. I knew that she was older than my mum. She was probably younger than I am now, but she had an elegance about her. And when I was introduced to her, and I was probably 9 or 10, I grabbed her hand and I kissed her hand. And they all found that hilarious. But it felt like the most natural thing in the world for me to do, to pay respect to this elegance. It wasn't the way she was dressed. It was just something about the way her mien. And I like that kid.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pay respect to someone who, and she seemed a bit like a fish out of water, and who is this ragged company in the company of, and his little,
for sure,
Poncy Rogers kissing her hand.
And maybe last question, what do you think that little, kid who's struggling at school with skin condition and feeling on the outer, what would he think of knowing who you are now and where his future's headed?
He would be completely amused. Completely amused. I think good that I've kept the same haircut. I think he'd be bemused.
Tim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, this is fun. I got tea and I got water.
Yeah, and chats.
All the drinks you need.
Unfortunately not, but there's...
Well, Nick, an enigma he is.
Yeah, complicated, wonderful man. And now we get to hear from Dr. James solve all the riddles for us, please.
Less complicated, less enigmatic man that I am. That was so interesting, wasn't it? It's like lyrical to me, like poetic. You don't quite know where he's going. And I love that, like this artistic brain that kind of just flows like a river, which is harder when you're trying to draw out like concrete themes like we want to. But there were definitely some interesting themes in there, weren't there?
Absolutely. I imagine any listeners that have hung on to this episode this long appreciate, where that conversation went, because it was complex. It wasn't easy necessarily to follow through lines.
Yeah. And don't you think that that's something he's kind of chasing, right? To be, we use that word authentic a lot here, but in his own way, he's kind of raw, like just a raw nerve, and it's kind of exposed, and he's trying not to pretty it up. It's like the answer is what it is, and he's looking for that truthful answer as best he can through an artistic, interesting lens.
I don't know what I think of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm torn in a few different directions.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like an authentic pursuit in one way, and in another way, I kind of felt the trappings of the artistic persona.
Like a bit performative at times?
Not that he's not being sincere, but just in terms of, anyone that develops their identity through the lens of being different and being other in society. And I think, what did he say? The bordering on derangement was part of the appeal for him. That's, what he valued in other people and other artists.
Yes.
But I think it kind of left me with this feeling that he was also a little bit held captive to that identity and that ideal. Does that make sense? So I'm not left with necessarily authenticity, but even ambiguity for its own sake. Well, no, that's not fair. See, I'm confused. I'm confused by this episode.
You're allowed to be. I think the contradictions are inherent, and I think that's part of what makes him interesting. And there's clearly a tension there, isn't there, between his artistic pursuits and the desire to be an authentic artist and create and be free to do that. And I guess the long-held, almost stereotypical image of the artist and drugs and alcohol as romanticized as part of that. And he definitely holds that, and that was clear today. But on the other hand, it's clear that drugs and alcohol has had a really harmful impact on his health and mental health. And I think that is something I'd like to talk about a little more.
Yeah, but he did admit that. And he said he doesn't like it when people are fetishistic towards the depravity and the downfall of artists as well.
That's right.
All at the same time, being completely held captive to it through his career.
Yeah. I definitely still feel like there's a romantic association there for him, as well as understanding how harmful it is. They're both true for him. But yeah, we cannot go past the fact that this is a young person who started taking drugs at the age of 10, I think it was. Yeah. And more significantly by the age of 13. Tell me, what were your thoughts about hearing that?
Honestly, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. As a professional, mine's anecdotal, but I understand at a distance the impact that can have on a brain. But do you want to unpack it a bit for us?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's obvious that it can have a very significant impact on young people's brains, and there is a reason that we want to protect them from this stuff, because mind-altering substances, when your brain is rapidly developing, is not a good combo. And what it can result in is exactly, unfortunately, what Tim has experienced, which is schizophrenia and psychotic episodes. And I should probably just explain a little bit about that, because there are some misunderstandings in the public still around what schizophrenia is. Traditionally, I think there was an understanding that it was like multiple personalities, but that's actually not the case. It is disordered thinking, defined by having hallucinations or delusional thoughts. And so basically that you cannot trust your own brain. You can't trust your own thoughts. It tends to be a lot of paranoia. You might see or hear things that are strange or unusual or not true. It's a terrible condition for people to suffer with when your mind essentially betrays you.
And he was careful to say it was a schizophrenic episode.
That's right.
Or episodes for him rather than a diagnosis.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we do know there is a relationship, a higher probability of paranoia and psychotic episodes if you take substances when you're younger, including just marijuana. It doesn't have to be the harder stuff. Which is why I think, even though there's quite a public push, particularly on the left side of politics, towards legalizing marijuana, which I'm not against, I still think the concept worries me because of young people who are susceptible to mental health issues because of it.
So you say it's more about the age that you're concerned with?
It is, yeah, and just being careful with young brains. It matters what we put in them when they're developing. I mean, it's hard enough, right, just developing normally and healthily. But yeah, once you add mind-altering substances to a young developing brain, significant mental health episodes can occur.
Yeah. No, it's good to hear you say all that as the professional. I've been in bands my whole life, and my experience is just anecdotal. But I know so many people that abuse substances early and have just suffered the consequences through their adult life. And,
right. Now, of course, you're leaning into the addictive nature of it, which, is another factor, that once it's normalized and your brain gets used to that substance, there's a certain habituation that can occur and the need for it in order to feel normal. So, yeah, again, just great deal of caution.
So that's a roll-on effect. But then you've also got people with a creative impulse who experiment partly because they're not satisfied with regular society, and that's a real valuable trait as well.
Yep.
I think it's an understandable path that people take, and that kind of mentality, you can understand why they go there. You heard that in Tim's story. It's brave in a way. I don't want to romanticize it. Like, I totally agree with everything you said about the young brain experimenting, but I'm not surprised that a real artist did experiment early on.
That's right.
And took risks.
The willingness to push boundaries. But that romanticism, even that, like, I'm wearing my my Beatles jumper that you gave me, which I love, very comfortable. But it makes me think of them. And
I'm still waiting for my jumper for me.
What would be on it? Incubus.
God, no.
Björk.
Don't say that on
Tom
the podcast.
Waits.
Incubus, come on.
You like a lot of different things, but you did love them when you were younger.
Yeah, like that was 13.
Well, that's the thing.
I'll go a Tom Waits jumper. Yeah, give me a Tom Waits jumper.
All right. I don't think he sells them. So where was I going? We got a bit derailed there for a minute. I was talking about the Beatles. So on the Beatles anthology, like the Beatles are famously, they led the psychedelic movement in a lot of ways in the 60s. And there's a thought that songs like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds stands for LSD, which it probably does. And some of their most beautiful, profound songs have drugs to thank for that. But on the anthology, they said that drugs never really helped them. And the truth is, when they were high, the music they recorded was crap. So it's an interesting thing to think about, whether that romantic association is true. I don't have an answer to it because I haven't really used much of it myself. But
I mean, I imagine for some people it's produced creativity that's valuable.
Yeah.
And for others it's been a hindrance. You know, Tim kind of spoke about it like, it's almost like, I don't want to be too reductive. In some ways the drugs caused the anxiety and then the substance use was just staving off the anxiety.
Yeah.
It wasn't the fuel for his creativity, but it was the cover that kept him feeling like an artist, kept him living in that persona. But really it was just calming the nerves.
Can we take this in a slightly different direction for a moment? We're both big fans of Sam Harris, of course. And Sam is incredibly curious about psychedelics and I know uses them in his own life and is a proponent of expanding our brain and mind.
Yeah, not anymore, I don't think. I think they were early experiences for him.
Right, but I've heard him even recently speaking in a way that like suggests that our culture is perhaps missing something with the absence of the ability to look beyond the horizon, as it were. Do you have any views on this one?
Look, I guess I can only speak from my own experience. And yeah, I'm drawn to Sam's work. I'm drawn to meditation, as you know, and exploring the mind and being curious about its limits and different experiences. But the risk side of drug taking has always been an area that I'm not willing to go. And I'm so curious about hallucinogenics. I'm so curious about that side of the brain.
Yeah.
And maybe one day I'll feel mature and ready enough. But the risk of altering chemically, it feels like too much.
I've had that ingrained in me since a young age. But I just fully appreciate that speaks to my lack of coolness that I've always had. But I've also been, I'm adventure seeking and open in certain ways and risk taking. But when it comes to drugs, I've always believed what was at the end of the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe episodes where they said, don't do drugs, kids. I just believed it.
Yeah, well, I might have dipped my toe in a bit more than you, but we're both probably on the more conservative side there.
Yeah.
But I'm open to changing my mind on that in the future.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with Sam either. But yeah, maybe when we're 60, 70, maybe 80, we'll just do a lot of drugs together.
Oh, on this podcast.
Okay.
Next episode.
All right. Not next episode, but maybe in season 83.
So yeah, I wouldn't want to only talk about drugs off the back of Tim's episode, as interesting as that is, just because there were so many interesting themes in that chat. And one, of course, was just how he's dealt with his anxiety across his life. And there was certainly some well-earned wisdom that was shining through, poetic as it was.
Yes.
What did you make of some of the lessons he's learned?
Yeah, anxiety is a lifelong thing to manage. That's what I took from that, and it's been going with him on the journey. But I just feel like it's, he loves nature and loves getting away from the busyness of the city and the stillness and quiet and introspection. But music has been this protective, consistent, lovely part of his life that continues to be his primary form of expression.
And literature as well, of course. He spoke about how books can be the thing that kind of short circuits and changes his mindset into a more positive and less anxious state.
Yeah, but just from the music point of view, I mean, we're both very musical and it's so meaningful. I think I feel very lucky to have music in our lives, but to look at someone like Tim who's been able to do it professionally on such a huge scale and take it with him, for a man with some confessed vulnerabilities and mental health struggles, isn't it lovely to see the powerful role that music plays in his life? And of course, Nick, as mentioned, we were very lucky in asking him if he wouldn't mind adding a bit of music to his child letter today.
Yeah, what a treat.
So let's enjoy that now. Thank you for another lovely episode.
Brilliant. See you all next week and enjoy Tim's letter.
I'm going to improvise. Timothy, you are a nervous kid. Kids are supposed to be inquisitive and restless, bewildered and excitable, but you are nervous as well. So it goes. The skin conditions and moving around a lot have left you very self-conscious and solitary. Yet, you're not lonely, are you? Let's take that as a win. Now, embarrassment and shame will serve you well in time. It's just gonna take some time. Dang. Keep noticing the kids around you who have more worry. That boy who has chronic diarrhea and other digestive issues needs a friend. That young lady with the skin worse than yours does too. Be kind. More than anything else, please pay attention in French classes. But Timothy, read more for Lucifer's sake. Reading fiction will save you in 40 or so years and give some purpose to this nervous woe. You'll find reason in rhyme, make sense of distress, peace and wonder in your daydreaming, not terror. I mean it, man. Here, take my copy. When you get to something difficult that you don't immediately recognise, reread it and ponder on it. If you don't recognise it, still proceed and return to it, perhaps later. Reading will be the thing that saves you, boy. So why don't we start trying to be a better person now and ask that boy with the diarrhea and that girl with the acne to join you in a book club. That's a start. Oh, and you're going to start playing guitar pretty soon. Stick to it, punk. Ooh.
You're a Good Kid is produced by Nick and James Van Kylenberg, recorded at White Owl Sound in Melbourne, Australia, with artwork by Dirty Puppet.
We acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was recorded, and recognise their continuing connection to lands, waters and community.
We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, and to the elders past, present and emerging.
If anything in this podcast has raised concerns related to mental health, please contact your health professional, or if urgent, call Lifeline on 13 11 14.